Hey, 42 here. Have extraterrestrials visited our planet? These terrifying real-life abduction stories seem to suggest that not only have they visited, they've been here for a while, watching us, experimenting on us, and even crossbreeding with humans. One eerie night in 1976 in rural Maine, 4 friends who had met at art school went on a camping trip. On the second night they noticed a very bright light in the sky. And then, on the third night, undeterred by the looming threat of alien abduction, they decided to go for a spot of night fishing. Whilst fishing out on the canoe, they noticed the same bright light again. One of the men used his flashlight to make an SOS pattern at the mysterious light. Now this wouldn't prove to be one of his wisest decisions ever, because shortly afterwards the ominous light rapidly expanded and engulfed all 4 of them like an alien Pac-Man on steroids. The next thing the men remembered was waking up back at their campsite with absolutely no idea how they got there and what had happened in between. The fire they had stoked up before they left was now completely burned out, and all that was left was a pile of ash. Now if that doesn't scream, we've been abducted by aliens and inexplicably lost a substantial period of time, then I don't know what does. But no, the 4 men thought nothing more of it and finished their camping trip acting like everything was just fine. But in the weeks that followed, strange things started to happen. Firstly, all 4 men started to have the same horrific nightmares about being aboard a spaceship with mysterious beings that had long necks and large heads. In each of the nightmares, one of the men was being humiliatingly experimented on, whilst the other 3 men helplessly watched, unable to intervene. It was at this point they realised something serious went down during that camping trip. So, disturbed by their dreams, the men later met with a group of UFO specialists, who suggested that they undergo regressive hypnosis therapy to make all their horrific memories come flooding back. During the sessions, all 4 men revealed remarkably similar memories of being abducted and experimented on. Being artists, all 4 men were able to accurately sketch their abductors, as well as the spacecraft. All of the men's sketches were freakishly similar. Following psychiatric examinations, the men were all deemed to be mentally stable, and they all passed lie detector tests. The unnerving event has since come to be known as the ALLAGASH abductions, and at the time it reached national primetime news. Next up is the horrific story of the abductions of Jesse Long. Jesse Long is a man from Tennessee who claims he was first abducted by aliens in 1957 when he was just 5 years old. Jesse and his brother were playing on the hill behind his house when they came upon what appeared to be a round house under construction. The 2 boys obviously hadn't seen enough sci-fi horror movies, because instead of fleeing they stayed to examine the UFO-like object closer. Then, according to Jesse, a tall man appeared next to him and flashed him with a bright light. Jesse was instantly paralysed from head to toe. Jesse didn't remember anything more about the event until years later, when Jesse underwent some hypnosis sessions. During the sessions, Jesse remembered himself and his brother being led down a long hallway, then separated. Jesse was placed on a flat table and he recalled an object being implanted into his left shin. The object remained inside Jesse's leg for 34 years, until in 1991 he had an operation to remove it from his leg. Alas, Jesse's skeptics could deny his convictions no more, because, sure enough, there was a strange, small object inside his left shin. The object appeared to be a shard of glass. However, it was sent for further research at a laboratory, and the research came up with some extremely bizarre results. The Southwest Research Institute, who examined the supposed alien object, had this to say. The object had a very remarkable composition, and it exhibited unique surface characteristics that cannot be explained. And that the questions outnumbered the answers. Jesse claims he has been abducted again multiple times over the years, and in one particular, apparently extremely traumatic abduction, Jesse was forced to crossbreed with what he believed was a female alien being. In 1990, Jesse Long was driving to New Orleans, right outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, when a light appeared and Jesse's car was lifted off the interstate and he was brought up inside an alien craft with Jesse still inside his car. Jesse was then placed on a table and presented with an alien baby and told, "This is your child." Jesse wasn't sure whether they were simply informing him of his new alien child or they were seeking child maintenance. Either way, they seemed rather proud of what they had accomplished. Now this next case is very rare, because it's one of the few alien abduction cases that doesn't end in mutilation, death or weird alien babies. It actually has a happy ending. John Salter Jr. was travelling on the highway with his son when suddenly they discovered they were driving in the wrong direction and they had lost an hour of time. Now we all know what happens next. The two men had no memory of what had happened during their lost hour and continued with their journey as normal. However, a little while later, they apparently saw a UFO in the sky. Seeing the mysterious alien craft in the air jogged John and his son's memories, and they started to remember the strange and disturbing events that took place during their hour of lost time. The two men recalled seeing a group of children and a taller, half-human, half-alien creature. However, the men both said they were not afraid of the aliens. They instead felt extremely protected and they felt a strong connection with the alien beings. The two men were then guided into a room by their new alien buddies, where they underwent a thorough medical examination and peculiar procedures. However, unlike other alien abduction victims, John and his son reported an overall improvement in their health. But by far the weirdest part of the story, and the thing that makes it the most believable, is that John had a scar on his forehead. However, after his abduction, the scar had completely vanished. In most alien abduction cases, the abductee is somewhat safely returned to Earth, and then they tell others of their abduction. But this adds a level of uncertainty into the validity of their story, because they could of course be making it all up. That's what makes this next case so believable, because unlike in most abduction stories, FREDERICK VALENTICH was never ever seen again. 20-year-old FREDERICK VALENTICH was an aspiring pilot in Australia, until on the 21st of October 1978, during a training flight off the southeast coast of Australia, something completely unexplainable happened. During his flight, Valentich radioed Melbourne's air traffic control to advise them that he was being shadowed by an unidentified craft flying about 1,000 feet above him. Frederick said the craft was circling his own, and it was emitting an eerie green light. He then told air traffic control that he was experiencing engine problems. Air traffic control asked him to describe the other aircraft, to which Frederick replied, "It's not an aircraft." And then suddenly the transmission was interrupted by metallic scraping sounds and all contact was lost. A 4-day long search was undertaken of an area 1,000 square miles large, but no trace of Frederick Valentich or his aircraft was ever found. When the police questioned nearby witnesses, there were numerous reports of people sighting a UFO in the sky above Australia on the night of Frederick's disappearance. And finally is the spookily convincing abduction of Travis Walton. Travis is an American logger who, on the 5th of November 1975, at 22 years old, was working with a logging crew in the APACHE SITGREAVES National Park in Arizona. When Travis and his crew finished for the day, they were driving home in the same truck, when all the men spotted a bright yellowish light from behind a hill up ahead. They drove closer and they saw a large golden disc hovering above a clearing. The driver stopped the truck and Walton leaped out and ran towards the disc. The others shouted at Walton to stop and come back to the truck, but he carried on regardless. The rest of the crew insist that they saw a blue-green light come from the disc and strike Walton. Walton then rose a foot into the air with his arms and legs outstretched and then he disappeared, along with the hovering gold disc. The other men reported the incident to the police deputy sheriff when they got home. The sheriff reported that all the men were distraught and 2 of them were in tears. A large search party then carried out a search for Walton over the next few days, but there was no trace of him, until 5 days later, when Travis Walton mysteriously reappeared. Disturbingly, Walton had lost a significant amount of weight during his 5 days of lost time. His story reached national news, and he has since wrote a book detailing his apparent encounter with a UFO. Thanks for the view, subscribe for more. Thoughty.